streaming now.
Hello and welcome to this News9 special. Well, a massive landslide in Himachal Pradesh's Kullu has destroyed several houses. Now, it is feared that many people could be trapped under the debris. Many multi-storied buildings have collapsed like a pack of cards. Emergency and response teams have been deployed to rescue those who are feared trapped in the landslide. The Indian Meteorological Department, meanwhile, has issued a red alert and has warned of heavy rainfall in Himachal Pradesh for the next 2 days. This landslide visual is something that has shocked everyone who has been seeing it, as well as gone viral on social media, as well as people from several parts of the country have been responding to what exactly is happening in Himachal Pradesh. Because remember, Kullu is a holiday area. Many of them have been visiting these areas. They have seen these buildings as well, and many of them are in fact shocked at the manner in which these buildings are collapsing like a pack of cards. And some of them even expressed shock, saying that they had just walked around these areas which are being shown in the visuals, where you can see these buildings just collapsing. First you see the initial nature in which the pillars of the building start collapsing first, and then you have the entire building collapsing. You can see the visuals for yourself as to how the situation is unfolding in the Himalayas. In fact, we have reactions coming in from the authorities on the ground regarding what exactly happened at that location. Let's listen into some of those reactions coming in from the local authorities.
कुल्लू डिस्ट्रिक्ट को मंडी से कनेक्ट करने वाली हमारी रोड्स हैं, अभी दोनों भारी बारिश की वजह से डैमेज हुई हैं। पहले हमने बाया पंडो एक ऑल्टरनेट रूट जो चलाया था वो भी इस समय काफ़ी डैमेज्ड है, और जो कंडी कटौला कमांद वाला जो रूट है हमारा, वहाँ पे भी मल्टीपल डैमेजेस हैं, जिस वजह से अभी मूवमेंट इन दोनों ही रूट्स पे नहीं हो पा रही है। क्योंकि कल रात को भी काफ़ी तेज़ बारिश रही है मंडी के एरिया में, और आज भी रही है, तो आज रात तक पीडब्ल्यूडी जो डिपार्टमेंट है वो कंटिन्यूसली कमान वाली रोड को थ्रू करने के लिए कोशिश कर रहा है। और आज रात तक इफ़ द रेन डजंट डिसरप्ट द वर्क अगेन, तब शायद छोटी गाड़ियों के लिए LMVs के लिए शायद जो रूट है वो थ्रू हो पाए। हमारा ट्रैफिक आज ऑलमोस्ट येस्टरडे मिडनाइट से जो है फ्रेश मूवमेंट नहीं हुई है। और वाहनों की अगर हम बात करें तो हमारी कुल्लू की तरफ से मंडी जाने के लिए मेजर जो हमारा लॉट है वो फ्रूट और वेजिटेबल्स की गाड़ियों का है, जो हमारे इस तरफ वेट कर रहे हैं, जो बजौरा में वेट कर रहे हैं।
Well, that's in fact the local authorities speaking about how the situation is unfolding in Kullu, especially with the jam that has happened because of the landslides in that area. Well, to discuss more about this in our studios, I'm joined in by Nevriti Mohan from News9 Plus, and as well as Kabir Naqvi, my colleague who joins us. We will be joined in by Tikeder Panwar, former Deputy Mayor of Shimla as well. But Nevriti, what is exactly happening in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and also some portions of Uttar Pradesh where you have the lower reaches of the Himalayan mountains? Every rainy season we see disaster after disaster, and now the frequency of landslides have increased in these places. It was a seasonal phenomenon, but now it has just increased, and this happened at the Aani bus stand. Shocking visuals coming.
I heard you speak to somebody in Aani about the casualties. Any fresh information that you've been able to get out of Aani and Kullu?
Yeah.
So Kabir, I was talking to the Chief Minister's office right now. So they have told me, let me tell you some figures that I have got
Right.
from there. So death toll in Himachal Pradesh in this monsoon season has reached to 360 people who are dead.
My goodness,
Loss-
360 people this monsoon fury alone.
Yes. So loss of property is worth 12,000 crores, and more than 12,000 houses have been partially or completely damaged, as you can see the horrifying visuals coming in from Aani bus stand. And about this, they have told me that there were around 7 buildings that have come down.
That's a lot.
completely.
In
7
one
buildings.
landslide, 7 बिल्डिंगों का एक साथ इस तरीके से भूस्खलन में
जाना,
नीचे आ जाना.
बिल्कुल.
This is something that hasn't been seen. Even as we're looking at these figures, 360 people have died. 12,000 crore rupees worth of damage that has been assessed so far, and these are just estimates. This may be more. The death toll may be more. 7 buildings altogether.
Seven.
In one go, and
in-
this is really horrifying. I have never seen things happening like this before in my lifetime, as long as I have been in Himachal Pradesh. I am from that state, but I have never seen this sort of damage happening at one go. So this is not the only place that this damage has happened in. Okay, thankfully one thing that they told me is that these buildings were evacuated. They had pre-assessed the situation,
Okay.
and
Okay,
there was
alright.
no lives lost.
Because
in
Varghese,
this
you
accident.
remember you did that show on the Krishnanagar, landslide.
Yeah, that
That
was
happened in Shimla. That was equally devastating.
It was, in fact, the same kind of issues that were there. One is that you have a heavy building, loose soil, and then cracks appearing, and then, the people around it being evacuated as well. But certain areas, they did not have any sort of warning as such. You had 3-4 bodies actually recovered from that area in this thing. And it was like a cascading effect. The building just collapsed. The foundation just moved along with the soil, and it just collapsed in that area. Also, we are joined in by Tikendra Panwar, former Deputy Mayor of Shimla. Mr. Panwar, how do you see the situation in Himachal now? Why is it that Himachal is facing a situation like this? We've seen landslides, reports of landslides have been coming in, but if you ask, we have a Himachali herself from there who's saying that she's never seen such kind of situation in Himachal Pradesh before. Is there something fundamentally wrong happening in Himachal Pradesh? Has development, is this the price a lot of people are paying for the development that they try to have in Himachal Pradesh, especially in these sensitive zones?
Yeah, I think what you've said is aptly right. It's what I call, I phrase it a little differently. I say it's the planned destruction of the Himalayas. And I would say, I don't want, people of course are important, but I think it's more to do with the planning institutions. And planning institutions not just include the parastatals like the town and country planning, but the overall government framework and the paradigm shift that we witnessed in Himachal. In fact, if you ask me, when Himachal was formed or when it was born in 1970s, we had a very inclusive and sustainable development model, what I call the Dr. Parmar's model, who was the first chief minister of Himachal Pradesh. Since 90s, when we embarked on this path of liberalization, and the center said, you have to create your own assets, you have to manage your own resources, fiscal deficit is the guiding principle, and that's when this paradigm shift starts taking place in Himachal Pradesh, and for that matter, across the Himalayan states. So how do I generate my resources? I start selling my natural resources, I start selling my tourism, I start selling hydropower, and at the same time, we also find post-90s the rising middle class and the whole developmental model that we think, by just, and this whole buzz of cities being engines of growth. Mind you, most of the buildings that are falling are in the urban settlements, either peripherals or in the core of the town. And we thought that once we have this new typology, the typology that was advanced into the Himalayan region, which we hardly used. Nivriti knows very well the region that she comes from is what we call the Kathkoni design. The mountain typologies that we use, timber with stone masonry. But we said, no, once we have the reinforced cement concrete, we'll even be able to, check the juggernaut of water and the springs. Now, I just narrate you one anecdotal experience from Simla, where I have served as a deputy mayor from 2012 to 2017. We have around 25 water springs, what we call water nalas. I mean, these are unlike the nalas that you have in Delhi or other places. I mean, these water springs are where we used to get water for drinking purposes, and some 100 bawdis. Now, almost all of them have been encroached. Okay, and we think because of this RCC, we'll be able to retain or sustain these structures. Why is it's a planned destruction? Because the planned destruction is it started from the government itself. Because the government said, okay, you go ahead, because this have to be engines of growth, and that's how we started our tourism and from 1 lane to 4 lane to 2 lanes to 4 lanes. Now our 4 lanes are not working at all. I just heard the SP Kullu saying, it's such a disaster. Kullu, Manali, for that matter, Shimla. Because the NHI, the way we are doing, we are constructing our highways are completely unsustainable. We've never cut mountains in a 90-degree slope. That's what the NHI is doing. So we've seen tourism. At the same time, we've also seen the hydropower projects. I mean, more blatantly, we've given them permission to construct, and now we've just a few days ago when gates from Pong were opened, and we've seen the devastation it caused in Punjab. So the impetus comes from I mean it's quite an integrated stuff. But what I was mentioning about Simla is it's a plan. Why I say it's a planned destruction? It's not an unplanned destruction. Take for example the Himachal High Court. I mean, Himachal High Court, it's an approved building, 12 stories. Never such buildings are allowed in Simla, and that will be another disaster in the offing. Likewise, we have the lawyers' chambers right on a water spring. We have the Indira Gandhi Medical College right on the water spring. So this we have given some kind of we've just kept aside the mountain spirit and the mountain typologies, or the way we have been constructing the mountains. For example, this has not been our conventional mode or conventional style of development. It's been kind of imposed on us, and the imposition has taken almost 3 decades long, and now we are finding ourselves in such a peculiar situation where it's completely unsustainable, where we thought we'll be generating our resources, we are losing our assets, we are losing lives. More than 300 people have died. 12,000 crore is the total asset loss. We are not even counting the kind of loss that has occurred to the hospitality industry. It's almost more than 1,000 CR in just 2 months. So what kind of development is this, if you ask me? I mean, it's completely an unsustainable model. So the model has to be very akin to nature.
Yeah, Mr. Panwar, my question has been, I've been speaking to a lot of environmentalists as well, and I'm probably Nivritti also would be able to throw light into it. They said, take a look at how construction material has been employed in Himachal Pradesh. Now, for mountain construction, you do not use heavy iron, you do not use heavy concrete, you have a local construction material. You look at the weight aspect of it, you look at this, whether the soil can sustain that particular foundation, the weight aspect has to be considered, and then you have people from the plains who are investing in the mountains, and they are getting the construction that style of the plains to the mountains, and it is natural in certain slopes where the gravity is actually pulling, or rather completely pulling on that structure, and you have these 4, 5 story hotels, 7-story hotels that come in at areas that technically even by basic engineering levels it's not supposed to be there. What happened? Where was there nobody looking at it? Plans were just being sanctioned without exactly what is trying to accommodate what the natural situation is. Where did it go wrong? You said the planning went wrong, but then what did the city municipal corporation or the city municipality, the government, did they actually just blanketly give plans for such brazen construction?
I think you've raised a very pertinent point, and that's what I've been saying. And I have also become a party in the Supreme Court. I've for the Shimla development plan, I've implemented myself. And that's my argument. I said, please, for heaven's sake, stop copying the plain model. Plain, you can have a single land use plan. Take for example Chandigarh or Delhi, where you just work on with some areas, and then you create what in technical terms we call the FAR or the FSI. So you can go through that through that road. But in mountains, mountain is a cone shaped and the strata is not the same. And since the strata is not the same, you cannot have a single FAR. And the poor towns and the cities are not the planning institutions. I think I must register that here. The planning stuff is done by the parastatals, the town and country planning. And they are the ones who give a blanket FSI, FAR, and that's without giving a damn to whether there's a water body, whether they are sedimentary rocks. And not to forget, I mean, what the climate scientists, you pointed out at the climate scientists, have been pointing at us time and again, that, and the recent IPCC report, you know, IPCC report 6, that has said that the two most vulnerable zones in the Indian subcontinent are the coastal regions and the Himalayas. Why Himalayas? Because here you have a changed precipitation level where you have more rain in a shorter period of time, and that's exactly what we are witnessing. It's not that the warning is not coming, the warnings are coming since last 4 or 5 years. At the same time, because we are youngest range, we still have those tectonic plate movements, and we have sedimentary rocks. So what needs to be done? We already know that the impact of climate change is there. What we need to do is adaptation, and the adaptation has to be, for example, no means no. I mean, water bodies, there shouldn't be any building, any house on a water body. At the same time, the FAR must be based on a geological data or scientific data. Take, for example, the Britishers constructed Simla, and you still have certain buildings. The church is more than 200 feet. You have the coffee house building, which is again more than 150 feet. But they have gone by a basic rock strata. So where, and even the NGT is to my understanding is at fault, because why even 2 stories? Where you find the sedimentary rocks, there you shouldn't allow a single story. So, okay. So the point is, this sort of planning is not done. This is exactly what I am arguing in the Supreme Court, that for heaven's sake, do a zonal plan, do a subzonal plan, and on the basis of that, allow, and then you've also rightly mentioned about the typologies. And this is exactly what I said in the beginning, that the RCC, the strength, the sheer strength, the paranoia that we have about steel, that once we have steel embedded in the earth, and that's what's going to strength. I've seen how the buildings have come. This Aani is like really, I mean it's unprecedented, and it's really sad to see hard-earned money has gone
Mr. Panwar,
to the soil.
Mr. Panwar, if I could come in here, hello, hi, my name is Kabir. You spoke about the mountain spirit, and I just want to know your perspective, because you served as the mayor between 2012 and 2017, like you mentioned. In terms of the mountain spirit, how exactly is it dissipating? And also, whilst you're at it, would you like to throw some light on the SC's latest observation? You said that your party in a particular case, the SC recently, came down really heavily. It said, who's going to save the Queen? We have to carry out these audits in terms of carrying capacity of these hill stations, and the larger message that should go out for all these tourists that are thronging these hill stations. It's high time we tell all the countrymen that it's time to go easy on the hill stations.
Absolutely. I think it's not dissipating, sir. It's already dissipated. And the first dissipation started from the British. I mean, we have that whole paranoia about the British. My native communities, I mean, Nivriti knows, never lived on the mountain tops. If you see, all the settlements, the urban settlements that took place were along the rivers or, water bodies. I mean, of course, not into the water bodies. So they first came to Simla and made us believe that, look, you can even live on a mountain top. The ridge happened to be a grassland. The Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, it's a beautiful place where they constructed this beautiful building, was a grassland, okay? So first dissipation started there, but of course with the engineering design, like you have embanked drains, the kind of, so we still have the British manual, and this is what I've been asking my engineers. So for heaven's sake, please go by the British manual of civil engineering, and you'll learn a lot more. So the second point that you're saying, sir, is about the Supreme Court observation. I think I strongly welcome, and that is the need of the hour. I mean, this Malthusian theory, I've never been, I mean, I've always been against this, but I think we desperately now need to have a carrying capacity, some kind of discussion, debate on the carrying capacity of the town. Why should we not shift the High Court? I mean, there is a debate, why should we not shift the capital from Simla to somewhere else? But my point is, what do? I mean, once we shift, we don't want to turn it to a ghost town, or, you know, we build the same way like we have been doing it now. So, but I think, yes, we need to decongest. Why should we not shift the High Court? And that's what the Chief Justice of Himachal has also observed in many of his, out of informal sermons in the court. So I think we desperately need some kind of discussion on that, but at the same time also keeping in mind the reality. And the tourism, that's what I've been saying. You know, poor states have been asked to increase their resources. Tourism, they think, is like, you know, you just allow more homestays, more hotels, and that's how you're going to earn. Look at the way, I mean, we have not just our hospitality industry, but the state that was supposed to get taxes out of it, it's gone for a ride. I mean, 2 months we've not earned a single penny in these two stretches, Kullu, Manali and Shimla. So I think we need to understand this mountain spirit, and we need to understand that, look, there's certain things where it has to be no means no. And that is, and therefore what, I mean, I'm also part of that mountain forum where we are bringing in 11 states and 2 UTs together to at least discuss what should be a mountain typology. I mean, we can't have look at these structures that are falling. These are not, these are ugly, monstrous structures that we have constructed.
Well,
thanks to our planning.
Coming to that structures that you were talking about, you know, there is this pressure to showcase development, and when you know, the idea of development is to showcase something that you can say, this is what we got over here. So whether it's political parties or whether it's the government of the day, they have to bring up these huge projects to showcase development. So easiest thing, as you said, is, you know, the 6-lane road that can be cut through a 90-degree mountain, and these are symbols of development and tends to be communicative when elections come. But the fact remains is that whoever is advocating that kind of development, including the local politicians, I think that is where the communication is completely lost. Like, being from that area, a lot of politicians in that pressure to showcase something tends to go for huge projects that do not suit these areas.
I fully agree with you on that one. But I again go back to the argument that I started. You know, this didn't start here. I mean, we've shown to the world, you know, some kind of sustainable development. That was Dr. Parmar's model. We are a very backward state, let me tell you. But 1970s to 90s, I mean, can you believe in 1980s we were 100% electrified? 10 years we made, and look at the density that we have in our villages. Every village we were able to connect through the electricity wires. It's not that we do not know development, we know jolly well. But the point is the kind of paradigm shift that started post 90s, you know, where they said, no, now you have to generate your own resources. And successive governments embarked on this path, which is quite alien to the mountain spirit. That's what, and now people are realizing. I mean, it won't be too long, because the climate change science is not going to leave us. This kind of devastation is going to be very frequent. What they're saying is, if there were extreme weather events which were once in a century, now we will have more than 100 in a century. So I think we require a completely new paradigm, and that paradigm has to be which is for the people. I mean, development has to be for the people. We are not for development. Development is for us. And if we are ruining our lives, we are losing our lives, we are losing our money, our assets. I think this is what the mountain people, and in Kinnaur, you already know, Kinnaur, my tribal communities have come forward. They're not allowing a single new hydroelectric unit to be generated. And the slogan happens to be, no means no, Kyang. Kyang means fire in local dialect. So they're not allowing it. But the point is, their voice is very, very low. Their voice is very small. But with the cascading effects that we are witnessing now, I think these voices are going to galvanize. Where people will say, for heaven's sake, boss, we will not allow a water body to be encroached by a house. Boss, we will not allow your any new development plan. That kind of voices we've not been.
It seems like there are too many factors at play. Niviti, you wanted to come in here?
Yeah, I wanted to ask that people in plains do talk about mountain architecture, that mountain people should follow the mountain architecture, but how feasible it is, as you don't get trees when you have to construct your home, and you are एक तरीके से आप मजबूर हैं कि आपको कंक्रीट का ही घर बनाना है, क्योंकि आपको आपकी जो चीजें हैं जो आप ओन करते हो, आपके जंगल, उससे आपको लकड़ी भी नहीं मिलती है.
Lack of agency and options.
हाउ फिजिबल इट इज. जब लोग प्लेन्स में बात करते हैं कि वी शुड अडॉप्ट माउंटेन आर्किटेक्चर, हाउ फिजिबल इज इट?
I think that is what we need to do. I mean, that was feasible, but after the nationalization of forests, we're not allowing our TD rights. I mean, what we in Himachal had timber distribution rights registered right from the British Raj. Now, how feasible it is, that what the climate scientists are saying, look, you are importing timber from Malaysia. I mean, that is not how you climate adapt yourself. What you should do is, you have massive salvage timber lying there. It's not that there's dearth of wood, there's dearth of timber, there's massive timber. The point is that there has to be some kind of interdisciplinary or kind of intricate relationship between planning institutions. And that's what we exactly wanted to do when we have this workshop. What will be a mountain typology? Because the mountain typology cannot be what the Britishers left, you know, the Gothic Tudor or the Victorian architecture. It has to be quite in sync with mountain spirit. And as Nivriti pointed out, it has to be wood, it has to be timber, it has to be indigenous material. And that will give us more sustainability, and that will also give us, you know, some kind of legitimacy, I would say. Not the kind of blind, blatant, reinforced cement concrete, what we call the RCC usage that we are witnessing here.
And recently a statement from Chief Minister's office came in saying that we should be making tunnels instead of 4-lane roads. What do you have to say on that?
I say, please, for heaven's sake, ask the people whether they want these 4 lanes or not. Because once you have these tunnels, Nivriti, you will have Joshimath here. Shimla, fortunately, is not Joshimath. You find landslides because most of the houses, I can tell you about Summerhill, I can tell you about Krishnanagar, most of these places have actually become vulnerable because they've occupied the water bodies. But we are not Joshimath, we are not subsiding. The moment we have more tunnels, we will have this whole problem of subsidence, because we know what Himalayas are.
But cracks are appearing, and even as we're talking about, you know, subsidence, cracks, Joshimath, the Dham Yatras, the tourism, you know, shoddy construction. Take a look at these fresh visuals that have also come in.
Yeah,
Nivriti, drone visuals, drone shots that have come in from the Aani bus stand that helps us understand the extent of the damage. My goodness, I'm at a loss of words. When the visuals came in, and for somebody who hails from Himachal Pradesh, and we've got Mr. Panwar with us also on the broadcast, I mean, they're telling us that nothing like this, you know, has been seen before.
But the question...
And the people of Himachal, they are living in such horror that they are not able to sleep at night. Because I can see many of my friends writing their posts on the Facebook, writing that we are not able to sleep at night. We बार-बार जगते हैं रात में और चेक करते हैं कि आसपास सब ठीक है कि नहीं ठीक है.
If the land under their feet is moving, that is what.
No, but my question is, and Mr. Panwar, do come in on this. If you are getting so many, you know, messages on Facebook and Instagram, if people actually on the ground are scared, then why isn't that sentiment really coming out? Why aren't people hitting to the streets? It seems like is it not affecting them enough? Are we not in the right wire chain? We don't have that information, because if there is a protest that is being carried out, I mean, had I been in this particular locality, I would have gone all by myself alone to the Chief Minister's office with a placard, you know, that said no means no. You got to stop this.
They were on a hunger strike, I think.
I was. It was the first of its kind in the Himalayas. It's called the climate strikes. I was on a
kudos to you. Kudos to you, sir.
Thanks. But I think, you know, it's not that easy, because, you know, this model was sold to us post-90s. So that's the second generation. I'm 70s born. So, you know, second generation. So it will take some time to dissipate, I mean, this model, because now the fallout and the manifestation of this model is coming to us. It's really hitting us hard. And at the same time, not to forget that climate change was not what it was 30 years ago.
Right.
I couldn't sleep for 2 nights because the rain was like so devastating. I mean, 3 o'clock exactly I got up last night, and though there's no threat around me. But the point is, I've never seen rains in such torrential forms ever in my life. I mean, so the point is that this is going to happen. This is the impact of climate change right on our heads. and our adaptation is completely zero. I would say it's negative. We are completely not adapted. So I think I mean, for the first time I've heard by the way Chief Minister saying that we will not allow, construction to take place in the waterborne is a very welcome step. So, but still, to depart or to have a departure from a particular model of development, that look, you build tunnels. Now, I ask you one single question. I mean, what we are witnessing right now is the Kullu Manali 4-lane highway. We just close our eyes and think what will happen when the rail is going to connect to Manali. I mean, just for 10,000 people in Leh, we are going to take that rail from
point,
Bangapur.
important point.
I'm
On that front, Mr. Panwar, are you happy with what I mean, the dispensation has just changed hands. The dispensation has just changed hands. Congress, it's a Congress government this time around in Himachal Pradesh. Are you happy with the steps that the Chief Minister is taking, the local authorities on the ground? Do you think it's enough what's being done?
I would say nothing is enough. Let me be very frank on that. But for the first time, I saw your SP. I mean, our SP from Kullu. I mean, I think we have 3 or 4 women police captains in the district. I mean, what they call. So, I mean, they're excellent. The demonstration of our district officials have been like excellent. I remember people getting trapped from Kerala, and the police. The deputy commissioner and the SP were like so the administration is very responsive, the government is very responsive, but whether they will be able to bring in a departure from a policy paradigm. So what I'm trying to reiterate is you require a policy paradigm shift, and the policy paradigm shift is a little arduous task. It's a task which is not that easy. Now just look at this bus stand. I mean, once you're showing this visual, this bus stand is like right in the river zone. So this bus stand is also going to go sometime. When the fury of the river is going to come from the top, the bus stand won't remain. So the point is, this shift of development. I think it'll take some time, and I can see some kind of conversation taking place within the bureaucracy. But whether that will bring in a departure, I think it's too premature to comment.
Well, Mr. Panwar, you were in fact saying that you're finding it difficult to in fact sleep and worried about the rains, creating havoc. 2 days back, we did speak to one of the environmentalists, Mr. Sati, and he was saying that, these huge hydroelectric projects, they have, and dams, they have this water parked at a big altitude. So what happens is the formation of clouds has affected. Normally the clouds used to come to the plains, it used to dissipate rain, I mean the water used to dissipate and then rise towards the mountains, and then whatever is remaining is what used to come. So it was kind of a balanced approach, but these clouds are now directly forming above these water bodies, and they are water, they're having more water in these clouds, and that is what is leading to these cloud bursts. And when I first heard that theory, I was like, oh my God, it is normally sold to us that hydroelectric projects and, dams on these mountains, they are good for everyone. But that's not the case. It affects the entire rain, the rain system in the area as well.
And the irony is that people of Himachal in far-flung areas do not get electricity for 24 hours, sometimes in winters.
That is despite it having a hydroelectric project.
Yeah.
And imagine if we were 100% electrified in 1980s.
Yeah, so I'm still appalled at that particular fact. My apologies, but I was oblivious to that particular fact. And this is not going to be the first time when we'll see buses, the entirety of the bus stand going for a swim. We've seen massive overload trucks going for a swim this time around as well. But just this factor of not knowing when what will happen, you can't even go to sleep peacefully. Would you like to share some more anecdotes of people?
I would like to say one thing, that this is for the first time that I have seen a road on Sanjoli. It's a state highway. And it connects to the national highway, the road that goes from Sanjoli towards Navbahar in Shimla. It is in Shimla 6. That road was waterlogged, and the road is on the cliff, and it is almost a 80 to 90 degree cliff, and you cannot imagine that waterlogging can happen there. So they have built a footpath on the outer side of the road, and because of that footpath, there is water logging on that road.
Constant
in my lifetime, I have never seen water logging in Shimla.
Waterlogging in
Cylinders
Shimla, where
also
you have a
became-
gradient. That's the thing I read about.
Because
Yes.
water naturally flows down the mountains, so there is no possibility.
So
feasibility.
just to sum it all up, it seems like there needs to be a policy paradigm shift, number one. Number two, from our conversations with the former mayor of Shimla with us on the panel, it seems like it's safe to say that the government on the ground, even after 360 deaths, 12,000 crore rupees worth of damage after an estimate, seems like there are some steps that are being welcomed.
But I think it's,
the SC's observation is a welcome step. People are stepping out and raising their voices. But sir, I really want you to, put out a message to all the viewers that are watching this stream and are making those plans to go to these hill stations. Your stern warning. What is your word of advice and caution at the same time to everybody that's watching the stream?
Well, I would say people should come, but what we require is a sustainable form of tourism. I mean, I think we've had enough of this mass tourism where the state tends to lose more. So I can't take a position where I say people should not come, but for heaven's sake, not as of now, because the kind of havoc we are witnessing. But this is a state where people should come, they should visit, they should try to understand the culture of and that's what we are discussing in this mountain forum. I'm so glad that you provoked me to say so. They should know what is the culture of the state. They should know what are the, what was the food habits of the state. Not to come on the mall and then spend some time and throw the rubbish around, and then increase our municipal solid waste. Not that kind of tourism. What we want is a sustainable tourism that tends to understand what Himachal is, what Himalayas are, and and then take it back home.
Absolutely.
Well,
what a beautiful way. It seems like this seems to be like the right place to sort of wrap this show up, Varghese. What do you say?
Yes, it is. In fact, it's quite an, we've been talking about what's happening in Himachal and Uttarakhand, and when we get that first-hand perspective of what actually is going wrong and the helplessness of a lot of people, I think that is the responsibility that we owe them, that we need to do something about from our side as well, and also to raise the issue as such. Well, thank you, Nivriti. Thank you, Mr. Panwar and Kabir, for in fact joining us with all that. Well, on the other side, we are talking about another issue as well, that is the sinking cities which are around the world and especially in India as well. What is leading to them sinking, subsidence, several other climatic changes happening, and how some of those cities are trying to in fact face that challenge as well. It looks like, well, due to climatic changes, we are going to see a lot of human settlements going to face a lot of challenges for existing on this planet as well. With that, let's in fact take a look at that documentary.
Why? 300 mm of rainfall in 24 hours. It's mind-boggling.
Extremely great. We don't recognize the issue when it's in front of us.
That climate change is not just a crisis or a challenge, it's an existential challenge for us.
Indian cities are vulnerable to climate change and flooding. Delhi NCR bore its brunt this year. The years ahead could be worse.
यमुना का जलस्तर तेजी से बढ़ रहा है। आज सुबह बिल्कुल ये समझ लो 5-6 सीढ़ी नीचे था और 1-2 घंटे के अंदर 5 सीढ़ी ऊपर हो गया पानी।
सर अब डूब गया।
सरकार की तरफ से कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है। सारी गाड़ी डूब चुकी है। ये मैंने आज तक ऐसे हालात नहीं देखे।
It was an unusual event. The national capital reeled under extreme floods. River Yamuna reached the Red Fort for the first time in 45 years. But if one reads Delhi's history, one realizes that technically this isn't flooding, but the Yamuna reclaiming its own floodplains. Unplanned construction on these floodplains has come back to haunt the city, and its victims are Delhi's residents.
Delhi began to colonize the area closer to the river. So the space for the river began to get constricted. From my knowledge, I can say a very major flood in 1948, another very major flood in 1958, 1964. After the 1978 floods, which were also very, very high, the embankments were made on both sides of the river. And then gradually we started building inside the embankments also. So if the river cannot expand horizontally, it will expand vertically. And when it expands vertically, and if it bursts through the embankments, there are openings in the embankment, then that water will spread into your neighboring areas.
But most of the colonies were planned in without any consideration of the flood, etc. Another thing which was ignored in the master plan was that Yamuna river was treated as backyard of the city, and lot of undesirable activities like sea power station, Rajghat power station, industrial areas, cremation grounds of VIPs, etc. And 76 unauthorized colonies also came up in the riverbed because it was all kind of vacant land without much protection.
It is a flood, but it is not a natural flood. It's a man-made flood. No, most of the stormwater drains that we have are old systems. Systems, for instance, going, not even colonial, going back to Firoz Shah Tughlaq in 14th century.
Most of the drains were built 50 years back, 60 years back, even some 100 years back, and lot of muck, lot of silting has taken place. So their capacity is already reduced to half to one-third.
When the river is, moving at a high level, the water in the river has become high, well above the danger level mark. Then what happens is that the storm water drains in the city, they are not able to discharge into the river because the water in the river is high and the drains are low. So this water cannot flow out. So then it affects the city. And if at the same time there is rainfall within the city, then that water cannot flow out. So, areas within the city will face waterlogging or urban flooding.
यमुना में छोड़ा गया है 2 लाख क्यूसेक पानी। हथनीकुंड बैराज से ये पानी जल स्तर है वो बढ़ गया। जल स्तर बढ़ने के बाद अब हाई अलर्ट पर है दिल्ली सरकार।
Every now and then we get a chance, we are closing tanks, we are closing ponds, we are closing canals, and we are building on top of them. Or else we are building concrete edges and creating land which can be marketed, and then turning the old river beds, they are rivulets which came in, we are turning them into nalas. So the damage is done constantly by everyone in the name of development. If you look at the central control area of the Delhi metro system, is on the riverbed. They reclaimed about 65 acres of land on the riverbed, raised it by about 5 meters by dumping soil and all the waste from the city, all the factories which are giving out residual material, they were all dumped into those areas. And the land was raised by 5-6 meters. On top of it, they built the control area. So it is sitting on a raised land, but it is inside the riverbed.
Between 2000 to 2015, the build-up area in 10 Indian cities increased by 47% in city centres and as much as 134% in peripheral areas, according to a report by the World Resource Institute.
So the rate of growth in these suburban areas is much higher. And what's interesting is when we overlay that with the natural infrastructure, so low-lying areas, water bodies and so on, these are more indiscriminately being lost in the peripheral areas. Delhi is one of the cities that we looked at. Definitely a built profile is showing up in what would be designated as areas where the river was flowing earlier.
In Hyderabad again, it's the series of ring roads and they're choking all the ponding systems that they had. The river has already gone dry. Bangalore has no riverbeds at all. Most other Indian cities developed along riverbeds because they were water sources. Bangalore depended only on this ponding system. And all the ponds are closed and they become IT hubs and so on. So where will the water go? They'll either stay on the road or enter your house. There is no other place where it can go. Whereas in Chennai, it is a regional development problem. In Delhi, it's a combined problem of regional development and city problem. In Bombay, it is the development along the Mithi River where it goes and becomes an estuary, that whole Bandakolda complex is developed on that estuary. So they've cut off all the mangrove systems and the concretized areas, and they have big multi-story buildings and massive business centers there. So where will the water go? So water will have to enter the city. So everywhere it is a different kind of problem which is leading to the flooding issue.
A Home Ministry study reveals that floods have cost India 4 lakh crores in 65 years between 1953 and 2018. This is equivalent to the money the government kept aside to develop roads and highways between 2022 and 2024. So what's the best strategy to ensure such devastation isn't witnessed in our cities?
The changes could be that we build on higher ground. We do not build in vulnerable areas. Okay, we create, at least in the newer development, we create better drainage, taking into anticipating that there will be much more requirement, much more capacity requirement in our drainage systems. We can remove our unauthorized colonies from floodplain areas. We can leave more space for the river. That should be a rule that the river must have its space to expand.
We should develop biodiversity parks, and the whole water flood control strategy has to be revised.
It should be now very imminent that at a national level we need a flood control and water management plan at national level, not to provide one solution, but to provide a national level strategy, because the rivers are, for instance, in the concurrent list. Both central government and the state governments are responsible, whereas urbanization is only a state level issue in the Indian Constitution. So you need the collaboration of them at the higher, larger level, at the India level. Both states should be consulted, and the center should prepare a new water management plan for the national level, and then they should have individual plans at local level for every city. And this should be done on a priority basis, in my view. And it needs to be done immediately. If we value human beings, if we value the wealth that we create, I think it's inevitable that we make this plan.
GPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies. A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.